very clever kid, I think a second or third grader. And I couldn't hear him. The sound at this end was broken. And so I called the technologist and they said, I think we've got it fixed. And so I said to Nathan, it's fixed now, Nathan, would you talk to me? And so he started talking and I couldn't hear a thing. And then he cracked up because he was just mouthing. He had figured out what was going on, this little punk of an 8-year-old.
That's funny.
And he had me on.
Funny.
Oh, I can use that.
Yeah, it's I still see him in the hallways of the school. I think he's a fifth grader now, and I poke him every time I see him.
Yeah.
All right. Steve, I don't know if you can hear us. I see your display is changing. Are we okay to go, or do we need us to wait a little longer?
Did you send Oz a message, Greg?
Oh, he's there.
Yep, he's there. I just let him in.
There he is.
There he is.
You're looking more and more hermit-like, Oz.
Yeah, I can hear Steve doing something.
Yeah, pushing in the wrong hole. You can't run the earphones out of the mic pot.
Okay. Well, Steve, can you hear us?
Live.
I think we got that. Well, Steve, I'm not sure if you can hear us. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I will record this. We'll do our cloud recording because I want to be respectful of folks' time. And the worst thing that happens is we don't get the full thing broadcast on YouTube. That will be okay. So let me start the recording real quick. There we go.
Recording in progress.
Okay. And okay.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's call the regular January meeting of the Oregon City Library Board to order. The roll call is Cynthia Andrews, Nick Dierkman, Larry Osborne, Heidi Blackwell, Bill Carton, Lisa Oreskovich is here, all by Zoom, and Greg Williams and Denise Butcher are also here as staff, as is Barrett. And yeah.
Okay.
So could we read the minutes, have approval of the minutes of the meeting of November 29th?
And actually, sorry to interrupt, David. I was not, I just noticed on the agenda, it didn't change a thing. I didn't include the minutes. That was one thing I didn't get.
Well, we'll postpone that to the next meeting then.
Yep. So we can go right into officer elections if that works for you.
Okay, officer elections. I guess the two officers that need electing are the chair and the vice chair. Before we do that, I want to say if anybody is interested in serving as chair, I am happy to relinquish the scepter. I'm happy to continue, but really it's up to you. No feelings will be hurt here. I want to be sure that anybody that wants to participate and wants to lead gets an opportunity. So with that, I'll open nominations for the chair.
I nominate David Greenberg for chair.
I'll second that.
Great. Okay. Any other nominations? Any other interest? All right. Take a vote, please. All in favor? Answer by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, thank you for your faith in me. And I didn't want to make the assumption, to say the least. And I'd like to nominate Cynthia Andrews as vice chair again. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Any other nominations? Okay.
I'm like David, if someone else would like to be the vice chairperson, I would be happy to relinquish that to them. It's a good way to learn things and get involved if you're interested. No takers, huh?
Okay, can I have a vote? All in favor, aye, please?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, the motion passes. I want to do one more thing before we go to Barrett. Heidi, who has gotten very busy in her life, as one could imagine, being on the school board, has asked if one of the two new board members who are not involved with liaison would be interested in taking on her duties as liaison to the Teen Advisory Committee. Heidi, do you want to say anything about that, please?
Yeah, I think it's up and running. It's Sabrina and Barrett with the Young Teen Advisory Committee really take the lead on everything. I personally have not been able to make the meetings on the Saturdays and Sundays, and I feel like that's an important part of that role. But they do have great notes that they provide since there are officers also in those groups. So I just would like to see if somebody else would be willing to take on that. And I have lots of connections with Barrett and Sabrina with other projects that we're working on. So I feel like I have a very good connection and will still be in contact with them on other things.
I'd be happy to help.
Right.
I can take that on. Yeah.
Great.
Good.
Does that need action by the board, Greg?
I believe that the chair, by the bylaws, the chair gets to designate the liaisons to committees. So
Okay.
if you wanted to ask for acclamation, you could certainly do that just to make sure that.
Okay. Is anybody opposed to having Lisa take on this role? None heard. I affirm Lisa's appointment as the new liaison.
Hey, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Barrett.
All right, Greg, are you able to pull up the presentation and share that with everybody? Perfect. And apologies to Heidi, you're getting to hear it a second time. All right. Everything prepped and ready to go. Give me just a second. I've got a fan event on in here. I'm going to go turn that off really quickly.
F5, Greg.
All right, there we go. I learned the hard way, recording videos, story time from home videos during the pandemic, that if that fan is on, the microphone quality goes down quite a bit. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about the Student Library Card Partnership Program, which is a partnership between Oregon City Public Library, Clackamas County, and the Oregon City School District. All right. Yeah. So yay to all of our partners. This has been in the works. We had the initial conversations with the school district in like August of 2020, and we were like, oh yeah, we can do this. This will be great. And then the rest of 2020 and 2021 happened, and everybody had kind of some other priorities. And then we also had some work to do at the county level around how we wanted to approach this kind of partnership on a county level as well. So been like 3.5 years in the making. But we're doing a pilot program this spring, and it will go live to all Oregon City School District schools in fall of 2024. So, Greg, next slide, if you please.
And I've got the wrong screen up, so hold on. I'm just going to reshare the right one. There we go. Okay, hopefully that's better.
Yeah. It all works, but this will be good. Okay, so yes, next slide. So starting in the 2024-25 school year, which actually begins this month, kindergarten registration opens at the end, next month. Kindergarten registration opens at the end of February. Parents of OCSD students will be able to sign their student up for a student library card at the public library through the school registration process. So this is a special type of library card. It will have 5 checkouts and 5 holds, as well as access to all of our digital materials. There will be no late fees on any physical items in our collection, although loss and damage charges will still apply. And it will be obviously as a linked library card, it will be valid at all of the Clackamas County libraries, including us. Next slide. So how it will work is that, sorry, mentally, it's been a very long day. Put my brain in gear for this. So it is a digital only card, although we'll provide paper templates to schools that they can print out on cardstock, and then students can write in their card numbers so they can have a physical card if they want to. But with thousands of students in the school system, issuing physical cards for each of those students isn't really feasible. Plus, with a digital only card, we can use a student school ID number for their library card. So the student library card, their student ID number will double as both their school ID number and their public library card. It'll last for a full 12 months after the card is issued. Due to the way that the district's registration timeline works and the process of sharing that data with our Link Network staff, we're going to create the cards. The cards will be activated on December 1st every year. So for the implementation year, and then for incoming kindergartners and new students, there will be a delay because it's only going to be done once a year. What happens is it's part of either the new student registration paperwork or the annual update paperwork. And so families will fill it out, and then once a year, that information will be sent to our staff to create those digital cards. Yes, and I just skipped ahead on a whole slide. So yes, we can move forward. So we are working on a pilot program right now. We're still having the MOA, which is the legal document between all of the entities participating, signed, which sort of slowed us down a little bit, but we're working on the pilot program right now. And we'll be running that within the next couple of months. And then everything is still on track to be part of the registration paperwork for this year. And so the nice thing about the pilot program is we're working with a very small number of students. It's about 100 students who are going to be offered participation in the program. That allows us to do kind of a practice run and practice uploading things. And that way, if something goes wrong with the test upload, it's a small number of records to work with, and it's easier to solve any problems that come up when you're working with 100 students as opposed to 6,000 or whatever it ends up being. And then the registration will continue through October, and then we'll be doing the full rollout in December. Next slide. Benefits of the student library card. Obviously, it supports our create and support young readers, strategic focus from strategic plan. And I believe this is an activity, a specific goal on our tactical plan as well. The school districts in Oregon actually just this year are getting access to their first ever early literacy grant funding to specifically do literacy programming for families and to really prioritize doing some both school community and broader community supports around creating a culture of reading, particularly with early elementary school kids. And so this is a great way to be supporting some of those goals, as well as like having access to independent reading books. A key tool in students being able to, develop and improve their reading abilities and help the district meet some of their goals around improving student literacy. We also love that it streamlines library access for busy families. That we know that a lot of people have a lot on their plate, and being able to integrate this into something parents are already doing is going to be really helpful. And it's also great for parents who may have anxiety about reading themselves or about using the library, and might be a little bit nervous to come in and go through the process of signing up for a card, maybe they're like, it's just for whatever reason, it's just too much of a barrier. And so being able to just have the card, do this as part of their school paperwork, have that card information, and just be able to place a book on hold or come down to the library and already be ready to go will be really helpful to a lot of our families. And then it will also allow us to facilitate student checkout on library field trips, which is our #1 request from teachers in the school district. They want to bring kids down to the library and have kids check out library books and get cards. And because it takes about 5 to 10 minutes for each card and we need a parent signature and parent ID, like that's just not feasible for a field trip model. So having that student library card done through the school enrollment paperwork will allow us to be able to do that really easily without having to deal with all the barriers that come up when we're doing kind of a more traditional sign-up process. And then just a thank you to everybody who's been on the various task forces for this project as we've investigated, youth access library cards at the county level, how to implement a student library card specifically at the county level, and then the team of folks from the Oregon City School District and Link who've been working specifically on figuring out how we're going to do this here. This is the first partnership of its kind in Clackamas County. It's modeled on a program Washington County has been doing for years, Multnomah County as well. But we are the first library and first school district in Clackamas County to be launching this. Okay.
Great. Barrett, I have one question. How many new digital cards do you think this is going to create?
That is such a good question. I'm trying to remember the exact enrollment numbers for the district. So parents will have not all parents are going to want their kids to participate in the program. The registration form is going to have a couple of options. It's going to say, yes, sign my kid up for a student library card. And it's going to say, there's 2 options for no. There's one option, which is, no, my child already has a linked library card that we use regularly. And then there's an option for, no, I don't want to participate. So that will help us for, whenever you have a system with all this information, having good and consistent data and records management is really important. And so we're trying as much as possible to minimize duplicate records and to create some various things for us to be able to deal with the handful of duplicate records that we're probably going to end up with anyway. So we don't know how many current OCSD students have library cards, and what's select out of that pool. We don't know what percentage of the of parents are going to be like, you know what, I don't want to mess with that. It could be anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000. We just don't know. But the way that the data process works is that the workload for the staff at network will be the same regardless of the size or the number of students. Basically, they do a lot of background to computer programming things to pull the data from the school district and get it translated into a format that our system can read and then import it in. So, we'll find out. I don't know.
It's going to be exciting.
So, Barrett, do you have any idea what the percentage is in the other 2 counties of the people who could sign up for it? Do you know what the percentage of people who do sign up, parents who do sign up?
So it's one of those things where it's hard to get that information because each school district does it a little bit differently. I know that Hillsborough, for example, they didn't do a separate form. What they did is any parent who approved the overall data sharing policy for the district automatically had their student get a library card, and then their staff deduped the cards and then didn't send any cards to kids who already had cards. So it's a very, very different model. Because ours is specifically going to be, this is your application, this is the form to fill out to get a student library card. Here's what data you're going to be sharing and here's how it's going to be used. Here's the benefits of getting the card. Do you want this? Check yes or no. That's very different from a parent saying, oh yes, it's cool to share my student's data. So it's very hard to compare to other libraries because that do this program, just because each school district has different levels of comfort around how they do this and how they want to do this and what they want to share. And so, while there's things we can definitely borrow, there's also, there's so much variation between all the different schools that do this partnership that it's really hard to get any sort of estimate that's going to compare to what we're doing.
Okay. Thank you.
I wish I had more specific information. So
it's all right. Thank you.
It's going to be a delightful surprise.
This is very exciting. I mean, this is exactly what we should be doing. It's the kind of outreach. It's the kind of early intervention. It's the kind of, waking the community up to this and keeping poking them, not just opening the doors and expecting them to come. So thank you so much. This is very exciting.
Indeed. I've got I've got one quick question. How does a digital card work? Do they have pins? And what happens when they go to the checkout machine?
Yes. So the way it will work is that their library card number will be OC followed by their 6-digit student ID number. That way, if different school districts, students from, there might be a student in Oregon City who has a student ID number, and it might be the same as a student from Milwaukee because each district's ID numbers come from their own pool. So it'll be starting with that OC. The PIN will automatically be the last 4 digits of the primary phone number on their parent's account. So it's essentially the same as the default PIN on our regular card applications. So when they go to the self-checkout, there's a little red shopping cart icon that you can use if you forget your physical card, or if you're like me and just don't carry your physical card and just put in your number. And it's a combination letter and number keyboard. And so they'll put an OC and then their 6-digit ID number, then their PIN, and they'll be good to go.
Yeah, perfect. This isn't really related, but is there already an issue with library books being returned at the school, or school books being returned at the library, and you guys have to swap every week or so?
Glad you asked that. So yes, that definitely happens from time to time. I actually had a school librarian email me earlier this week asking me like, what happened to this book? If books are, if like that, kids check out books in a lot of places, they don't always get back to the place they came from right away. If that happens, for on our part, if we get a school library book, we send it up to our network office. They have a staff member who takes care of getting all of those books rehomed, whether it's through the mail or for public schools who are on the ESD courier route. They can usually, that courier route intersects with the link courier route of delivery vans, and they can usually just pass those books off to Clackamas ESD and have them deliver it on their daily run to the schools. One thing we're really looking at as we move forward, especially around some of the initiatives the library and the board have around looking at doing some of the book walkers and looking at community book drops and finding places to put those in the communities. One of the things that's definitely been on our radar as a staff is the proximity of those locations to schools. Because that way families would be able to, if let's use Redland as an example. The Redland School is just down the street from the Redland Grange Hall. It's very, very close. And so being able to, say use the Grange or the store, that's right on the way to and from school for almost everybody who's doing a drop off or a pickup there. And so it's very easy and convenient for those books to get there for families. And one thing that came up when I mentioned this to the media assistants at those schools is they're like, oh yeah, if we get books returned to our library accidentally, like it's really easy to just take it down the street. Westland has book drops installed at all of their public schools, and they have staff who go around and once a week and get all the books from the book drops at the schools. So with enough staffing to do that, eventually we could look at that kind of model. But in the meantime, the schools will just either pop stuff on the ESD courier van and send it back to us, or mail it, or drop it off, or let me know. We'll arrange a handoff somewhere, dark parking lot. Those books, back.
I presume the permissions will be multilingual?
Yes, the district has it. We haven't gotten them formally translated. That's something we should definitely look into. Everything the district has, I believe, automatically is the way that their parent communication software works is that parents set their preferred language, and all the communication they get from the district comes in their preferred language, whether it's formally translated or through Google Translate. But that is a great question that hasn't come up yet. So I'm going to make sure to add that to my agenda for our next meeting and see about the district actually does have professional interpreters and translators on staff for Spanish and Russian as the top 2 languages in the district. So they may have some in-house resources to help with that, or we can certainly look at contracting out to get professional translations for something formal like an agreement like this.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Heidi.
Wanted to add that, so there's 7,000 students in our Oregon City schools. So when you think about the number of students that, possibly will be able to access that, that's pretty exciting. So Barrett did come to our school board and present earlier this month, and it was very well received. Everyone on the school board is 100% in support of this idea, and that access not just to physical materials, but the online materials as well is something that they'll be able to, utilize with the number that they have. You talked a little bit about returning. That was a question that came up. If a kid accidentally returns that, not a big deal. The relaxed due date was something that the school board felt was really important, but also limiting the number that the kids could have out.
Yeah. And one of the things that's also come up, particularly around digital resources, I've been talking to some of the teachers and some of the principals about. There's been some. We have like our Bookflix software, which is the read aloud picture book ebooks that we have English and Spanish, but we found another program that for a very reasonable rate does, I want to say, 70 different world languages.
Wow.
So we'd be looking at doing I've been trying to see if other libraries in Clackamas County were interested, and I haven't been able to kind of quite corral everybody together yet. So I think we'll most likely, nothing is formal yet, but we'll look at, that's a high priority for me in terms of getting that, because then we could be giving this to and I've checked, and this is something that the teachers would love to have and would love to do, but give this information to our English language learner teachers and to families. And so that then, encouraging the families of English language learners to get their library cards and then to use this service, because we can't we don't always have, often there will be a kid or a family in a school, and they're the one family in the whole school district in a community like ours where they speak a specific language. And so getting those physical books is really challenging. But if we've got something for them to share digitally, as an ebook that they can start with right away, I know that would be really appreciated by our. So looking at some of our digital resources and how, what choices we could be making that would benefit our public, like a public library context, but as well as looking at stuff, with an eye towards how can we supplement what's happening in the schools and classrooms and kind of provide some extra resources there as well.
Great. Thank you. Well, that's exciting. This has been a long time in coming, and we got through the pandemic and everything, and it looks like we're just about there. So good work, everybody.
Yes, and if I may, I just want to give kudos to Barrett. The data, when I talk about this to people, they think the data transfer is the hardest part. The data transfer is a solved problem, right? People have figured out how to get computer systems to talk to one another for years now. That's easy. The hard part is getting the legal agreements, and in our cooperative, getting every other library on board with, hey, one library is going to do this. This is going to kind of set the tone for what other libraries might do. And it's building the support and building the comfort level with all of our independent autonomous libraries in the Link Cooperative. And Barrett's done a very, very, very good job of laying all that groundwork. And it's taken years to get this done. So I just want to recognize her stick-to-itiveness and her ability to move this forward. And it's really exciting that we are where we are. So kudos to Barrett.
Indeed. Great. Okay. Thank you, Barrett. You are dismissed. Enjoy your evening. Before we get to the tactical plan, I want to see, were there any public comments, Denise?
There were not.
No. Okay. Well, there was one letter that came in, and that Grinch, Greg Williams, has responded to. And I'm wondering, Greg, is any more action, or does the board need to deal with this in any way?
That's part of the holiday of the display policy quick discussion that I was hoping to have at the end of as our last agenda item. So
okay, well, let's just put it off till then. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, the tactical plan update, please.
And I'll quickly just do the director's report.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Yep, no worries. Not a lot shared today this month. Mostly it was about financial stuff. January is the month when our library distributions start coming through. And so I gave the board both our first distribution breakdown. We get 2 distributions a year. About 93% comes in January, and the rest, about 7%, typically comes in June. So looking at the January one kind of lets us figure out what the rest of the budget, what the rest of the year is going to look like revenue-wise. And we were a nice, pleasant surprise. So, with the amount of our first distribution, in order to make the amount that we budgeted for this fiscal year in our city budget, our second distribution would have to be around $50,000. Our 10-year average for that second distribution is about $170,000. So, barring any, huge property tax meltdown or some significant change in the way the county is working on the timing of these, which they told us is not the case, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape for this year. Tacking on to that, we also get the county prepares an estimate for the next fiscal year based on what the assessor's office is telling them and what they're seeing. And so I provided that to the board. And again, while that estimate is just like anybody's estimate, everybody's crystal ball works just as well as ours, which is not at all. But the county typically does a pretty conservative estimate. And so their estimate for the next year, fiscal year, for our distribution is about 2.9 million. We budgeted 2.8. So that's all good news. I'm feeling, fairly comfortable about where we are, at least budgeting on the revenue side seems to be all good. So if anybody has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them.
No. If we want to use that additional money, the extra 100,000 or so, do we need to go to the commission for a supplemental?
You would have to do a supplemental budget. It would depend on the amount as compared to the full amount that was appropriated by the commission. Don't quote me on this because it's been a while since I read my little Oregon budgeting manual, but maybe Heidi might remember this. I don't know if you've been on a budget committee meeting yet for the school district. I think it's 10%.
Next month. People on our budget committee meeting. If anybody's interested.
So I think, and maybe Lisa knows, I think it's 10%. I think if you go 10% above what you were appropriated during the budget process, you would actually have to reconvene the budget committee. I think anything below that, they can just take it to the city commission. And honestly, Denise and I were just having a conversation today. We got some interesting news about our elevator, and some kind of strongly suggested repairs that we might not be able to wait a year and a half for until next budget cycle. So we're thinking, well, we came in a little ahead of revenue. Maybe it's worth going for a supplemental budget to the commission and saying, hey, we would like to use this money for the elevator. But that was something we talk about as a library board before we went forward with any. But yes, to answer your question briefly, yes, there is a mechanism by which we can go to the city commission and ask them to allow us to spend more because we have this money. That would just have to be approved by the finance director and the city manager, which, big conversation with them.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I did put some information in there, including something the state library put out. This wasn't meant to alarm anybody, but it's
pretty alarming.
Yeah, it's pretty alarming. So there was in Josephine County has a library district. I believe it's a 451 district like ours. And their county commission entertained some requests from some district members to opt out of paying their taxes to the library district in Josephine County. Obviously, this is not something that has happened in Oregon, and many of us believe this was not the intent of ORS, is that when you pass a taxing district, that's the result of the vote, is that the district exists and everybody who's within the boundaries of the district pays the taxes. So the county commission allowed this to happen. The library district quickly went to court, got an injunction. So I talked to our state librarian last week, and she said, yes, they are still currently under an injunction. Josephine County commissioners were in the process of preparing a response to that injunction, but neither of us have seen what that response might be. So it's something we're continuing to watch. If this were to actually gain traction, this could have devastating impacts for basically almost every public service in the state of Oregon, because so much of what we do based on our property tax system is done by special districts. And if it becomes the case that, hey, you can just opt out if you don't feel like paying for it, then boy, I don't know what the state would do. But I just wanted you all to be aware of that's something that's kind of, we're keeping an eye on. Any questions on that?
Well, actually, I have a question. It looked in reading the documents as if the argument of the people who wanted to opt out was that their property gained nothing from the library. But the argument of the state library seemed to be that the individuals gained from the thing. And the two arguments didn't seem to correspond.
Yes, I mean that is something, and I think when I read that memo from the state library and talking to the state librarian they went back in the absence of case law. They have the archives of what the debate was in the Oregon legislature when these laws were being written, and they can go back and read the transcripts and the comments that were made. And from the analysis that they did, they seemed to be fairly comfortable by saying that no, it's the legal argument that was being used by some of the people in Joseph County did not appear to be consistent with the intent of ORS 198.
The intent. Yeah.
Yes. So, but again, when these things go to courts, who knows what could possibly happen. But they felt pretty confident that there was no precedent and very little, if any, legislative history to support this interpretation of ORS 1A and allowing these people to withdraw.
Anything else in your report?
No, unless anybody had questions on statistics. But I didn't have anything else. That was my report.
Okay.
How is the staffing looking, Greg?
The staffing is looking. We could always use more. But I will say, and Denise, do you want to give an update on the staffing changes we've had, the hiring we've been doing?
Sure. So, in the biennial budget, we got 5 new positions, the 4 part-time LA1 support positions. All 4 of those have been hired and have started. All of them were from existing on-calls. So excited about being able to move some of them into some benefited positions. And then the last position is the Youth Services Librarian 1 opening, and we have interviews tomorrow and Friday for that. So,
and just one correction to they were LA2 positions.
Oh, LA2.
Yes, not LA1s. So yeah, and yeah, so yeah, that has helped with like in our kids area. It's nice to have a more solid team there. I think once we get that youth services librarian 1 hired and we have 4, kind of benefited folks in there, I think that's going to give some stability there. Our adult services team, they do now have a team of 4 benefit employees up there. We still do, utilize some on-call folks. I would very much like to continue the move towards not doing that as much or utilizing them in a more traditional on-call fashion. So we've made great steps. I will say, poor Denise, the schedule and staffing is just always tough, especially in winter with people getting sick. Yesterday, was it yesterday? I think it's either yesterday or the day before. We had somebody who was unable to come in, and we called 6 people to say, "Hey, are you able to come in?" And the answer on all of them was no. And so there's a degree. We're never going to have a deep enough bench that we're always going to have somebody who can come in, every single time. And so, thank you, Denise. She was on desk for a while on our circulation desk.
Oh, is that why I said hi?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I would say it's getting better. I would certainly hope that we continue looking at this path we're on going forward.
We will. Great. Okay, so the tactical plan update.
Okay, and I'll try to be brief on this. Like as we discussed, my goal with the tactical plan was to give everybody quarterly updates, and I think the format that we used last time people liked, so I've just replicated that. I will just focus on the areas that we've made progress. The biggest one, of course, is the student library card program, which you heard about from Barrett. So we're really pleased with the progress we made on that. I think I put a note in there that if all goes according to plan, we will have both of those activities done a year early, which is great. We have made some progress in our Books by Mail program. We received a $1,500 donation by the Oregon City Women's Club. So I want to thank the Oregon City Women's Club for their generous support. They've always been very supportive of the library, and this was a project they really felt good about. And I believe we are, I would have to go, I won't put Denise on the spot. I know we're right on the cusp of ordering those bags. You know, we've identified, well, I think we just have to go on the website and put in the credit card number and fill in the information on the pre-printing that we want. As part of that, we also have one of the positions we got new this biennium, and which we have filled, is that 30-hour-a-week circulation assistant position, which was one of the things we felt we really needed, that the circulation coordinator needed some support to help run this program. So we have that position filled. So I'm feeling pretty good that, you know, in the next couple of months, we're going to be able to start doing more with getting Book by Mail up and running. We've had some initial conversations with the Pioneer Center about, you know, maybe in the future, how can we maybe integrate this into Meals on Wheels? You know, if there's an option there for distributing books and picking them up that way. They're very keen on talking with us, but we'll have to get together and work out some details. The other thing I wanted to give an update on, we're still working on smart lockers. This is one of those things that's going to be a county procurement. That's going a little slower than I wanted to. So I'm going to get together with our director. We didn't get to meet in January because of the weather. So hopefully in February, we'll get our directors together and we'll get some agreements on what that solicitation should look like and be able to go forward with that. And then I did want to let you all know I am working on a field trip during this between now and March, a field trip to examine other libraries' vehicles. So I'll send out a doodle poll or something. But the first one I'm planning on going out to visit is we have an invitation from the Molalla Public Library to check out their vehicle. So hopefully we're going to be able to visit Molalla, Estacada, and depending on how interested people are, Hood River has one that I know the director there very well. But yes, so we'll have a field trip to go out and kind of kick the tires on a vehicle and kind of have some thoughts about that. The other ones were, they're on our radar. Not progress on them to report this time around, but I want the board to rest assured that we do pay attention to this and we are making progress on these as we can. And I like this. I like the way this tactical plan is working. I hope everybody feels good about it. We can always look at it in the future, but at least for me, it's a manageable chunk, and it's really nice to be able to kind of identify these specific things and say, here's what we're going to work on, for this year. So with that, if there are any questions or comments.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, that's exciting. Okay, the Library District IGA up now.
Okay.
I don't know if Nick, do you want to weigh in here?
I'll let Greg take this because really my best information is what was sent out via email.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
So in November, the county commissioners did have a meeting, and to remind folks who may be watching this video later, in August, I believe it was, the Library District Advisory Committee sent a letter to the Board of County Commissioners asking for clarification on a couple of questions that have just come up repeatedly throughout the years. The one that's of most import to many libraries, ourselves, I think, included, is the question of whether what the permitted usage of district dollars for capital projects is. And the group and stakeholders have just gone around and around on this for years at this point. So the request from the county commission was to provide some certainty, some clarity. The county commissioners directed county staff to work with the cities to prepare an amendment to the library district IGA that would help clarify that. Beyond that, they didn't give much direction. So staff have been kind of working on this. And what I've given you here is, I don't have any suggested language to share yet. This is still kind of in process with the city managers in the county. What I tried to summarize here is kind of some of the ideas and some of the approaches that have been discussed on how, you might go about amending the IGA. And I won't read the whole thing, but basically the first one is the current IGA already incorporates Oregon Library Association standards from 2008 that do have some, that do talk a little bit about facilities. So there's one thought to just include those, the whole listing of those in the IGA. Personally, I don't think that does anything because they're already incorporated by reference. So I don't know what good it would do to put those things in, but that's one approach that has been suggested. Another approach that's been suggested is to put something explicitly in section 2.1 of the IGA, which talks about the use of funds. And in your packet, I gave a very brief example of something along the lines that might, answer this question and provide the certainty and clarity that I certainly would like to see. And it was just basically explicitly saying that library district funds may be used for the provision and maintenance of library facilities. So that's another approach that could be taken. A third approach that could be taken either separately or in conjunction with amending the IGA would be to amend the master order for the district. So the master order is kind of the overarching, hey, you residents voted for a taxing district. This is what this taxing district does. And a very similar edit to that to provide a dedicated stable source of funding for services as well as capital purposes, the provision and maintenance of library facilities. One of the benefits of doing the master order is that the Board of County Commissioners can do that on their own. They don't have to, whereas with an IGA amendment that has to go to every city and 9 of them have to pass it. And then finally, there's some approach, there's some talk of, you don't have to change anything. Cities can just keep doing what they're doing. I don't think that's going to end the discussion. Nick, you can tell me if you think if you disagree. But I think if nothing happens,
I
we're
hate
going to
to
be
say it,
talking
but
about this for another 5 years.
Depends on the people who are on the LDAC, to be honest.
Yes. So from my perspective, the more clarity, the more clear and forthright it is, the better. That just puts this to bed once and for all, and I think allows the district to move forward with some really other important things. So I'm presenting this to you. I know that Tony and the city managers are going to be meeting next month to kind of discuss this with the county administrator. I've given Tony my feedback. I have told him what I think the discussion amongst this group has been, but I wanted to make sure that you all had a chance to talk about this. And if you've got any feedback, I would love to be able to take that to Tony so he feels confident that he is, he understands what at least the library board's concerns or thoughts are, and he can convey that, at his level with the other city managers. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. If you have questions or anything that's not clear, please let me know.
Based on reading this stuff and looking at the history and the discussions we have, I think it may make sense for this board to sort of pass a resolution, if you will, to Tony and to the city commission that, that states something like this: the library board advises a change in the IGA that explicitly states that capital expenses that serve and promote local library services are allowed use of district tax dollars. And at least he's got then that we support that change, and he can bring that to his group. We're here to advise, and so let's advise.
I agree. I think that's excellent. And I think what Greg was talking about, it has to be explicit, because otherwise the debate will go on. It can, there can be new members of LDAC or whatever, and it could, it still can come up as an issue. But I would support what you're saying, and that can we just do it now?
I think the text is well written.
Okay, good. Well,
I'll make a motion to support what was just stated in terms of the use of funds.
I'll second that.
I would like to hear it again, David. Could you read it again?
Yeah. the library board advises a change in the IGA that explicitly states that capital expenses that serve and promote local library services are allowed use of district tax revenues.
So as part of my discussion, I don't know if we want to tell them to amend or create a new IGA. It sounds like that was part of the choices that Greg gave. And that seemed like a overstep. Explicitly saying the capital use of the funds, absolutely 100%. But how that actually looks with the paperwork part, and I don't know if we're.
I don't know that.
I think an amendment would be the appropriate means of doing that, because we're not really asking them to write a new IGA, a total new IGA, but just to amend the existing one. And it'd be very easy for the city managers and others commissions to review that and say, this is an amendment to an existing agreement.
Of the options listed, that was option 3 then? The amend the library district master order?
That would be option 2.
Right.
What I might suggest is if you wanted to get the idea across rather than a particular vehicle, maybe you could modify it to say something along the lines of the library board, advises and recommends, any changes that may be necessary to the district IGA and or master order to blah, 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 not blah, 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 but to
That's fine. I think that's good.
I just think it's better to state it as an amendment to the IGA, because they're not considering even at this point. The instructions is to update or to make a change. If it's a change, it's going to be to the IGA.
Yes, If there's thought that it would also make sense to change the master order, you can also weigh in on that. I would encourage this body to weigh in on that. When I think of it, I'm trying to stay in my lane, right? Amending the master order is a simpler process. It also could be one of those things that when the attorneys take a look at it, I have seen there's some staff reports from the county from years ago when I was there that they said that at the time, the thought was that both a master order and an IGA amendment would be necessary, that they had to go in concert with one another, that, one on its own would be, necessary, but not sufficient to. Now, attorney opinions change. So, but again, I think
that's a good point. I would support saying either or.
Yes.
Or either both or the IGA.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yeah, either or. Yes.
Fine. Okay, so we've got that a resolution on the table that's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good. Denise, did you get that wording? And
no, I was just going to ask, can you send me that wording?
I will do that. I will send the wording, and I'll make that amendment that's either the IGA or the master.
Okay, and we do have the recording, so we can also reconstruct it from the recording. Yes.
But I'll send that to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
And so, where will this resolution go next?
Well, this will go to Tony, and basically just us in our advisory capacity, advising the city commission that we support this, that we'd like to see this happen.
Okay.
Exactly.
Just need to be clear about what the next step with it was. So
yes, and
we're within our guardrails here. We're not trying to talk for the whole district.
No. And I know that Tony will appreciate
what we want our city to do.
Yes, and I know Tony will appreciate having something that he can point to and said, "Hey, we asked our community, and this was their thoughts on it." So,
okay, great. Next issue, the display policy.
Okay. So first I apologize. I did not catch that ancillary document had not been included in there. So I sent that out to everybody under separate email. I hope everybody got that. I have updated the packet, so it's now included on the online version. So during the holiday season, we did get, as you saw, that feedback. the only thing I want to say for the recording is that when you read the written feedback from the patron, it said things that I said that were not necessarily true. And that she said that I was that I saw no problem with not however it was phrased, that I saw no problem with there not being. That was not the case. So I hope that the I tried to reiterate what I had spoken with the patron about. But it got us thinking that lots of libraries have display policies, and we do get some questions about hey, why is this display up and not something else? And so what I gave you all was some kind of guidance from the American Library Association on how to put displays together. And I tried to find two policies that were kind of at the spectrum, either ends of the spectrum of, here's a sample policy that really gets, you may do, during holidays, you may do bunnies and this, but not this, this, and this. I don't necessarily recommend that, but I wanted, I believe in giving you all as much information and context as possible. And then I gave you another policy, which I think is a lot more in line with ALA guidance and kind of what we try to do with our collection development policy is just saying, we look at displays as another resource that the library offers, and it's subject to the same, desires to be inclusive and represent different, communities within our service area. And establishing some sort of procedure where if somebody disagrees with it, they can come to the library board. But I want to have this discussion with you. So I guess my questions would be first, are you supportive of having of us going forward with creating a display policy? Did anybody have questions or concerns about the issues raised by the patron, especially the way that we've done holiday displays in the past? If there are, now's a great time so we can start planning for next December. And make sure that we don't repeat anything, any mistakes that we may have made, and that's to get your feedback on, what you all think about displays in the library.
In your time with the library, Greg, has this come up before? And if so, what can you describe a little bit about what the situations were?
Denise, I can't think of any real, there have been, I have heard, I vaguely remember when we had the Pride display up, every so often you'll get a little, maybe a snide comment from somebody passing by, but nothing that raised to the level of, I would like to speak to the library director about the display that you have in there. I don't think this is appropriate. We probably have the most of those informal conversations, honestly, on book displays in the kids area. So Barrett does a great job of that book display area down there. She's got a little for every month she kind of says, hey, here's what's coming to this display area, and she does a really great job of trying to identify different traditions or things that are seasonally appropriate, and putting materials on there. So we do get questions about that. I will say recently a lot of the questions have been, how come there's not Christian material on there? And the answer is usually we do put Christian material out there. It gets checked out. That's the hardest thing for us is the absence of something on a book display doesn't mean that we didn't put it out. It means that somebody said, oh, this is great. I want to check this out. So those are kind of the conversations we get. But this one was the closest I'd ever had in my time here to somebody, coming and really wanting to challenge a display, or in this case, the absence of a display that we had. And Denise, before then, do you recall anything?
No, okay. I don't recall any complaints.
I mean, I've never, in my time, it's never come to board level that I'm aware of from my tenure.
I'd like to see the development of a policy that protects staff and the library director. That, much like the book challenge, policy that we worked on last year, really takes the pressure off of individual library staff members and the director when there's a clear policy that's communicated to the public. So I'd like to see the staff work on an inclusive and diverse policy that goes on the website along with the, book challenge policy so that it's clear to everyone, where to take their complaints and whether that's that complaint has merit or not, or concern. It's not always a complaint. Sometimes it's a concern.
Right.
So, that could be dealt with in a process oriented manner instead of a individual attack, on a library staff member or the director. So, I would encourage us to be as clear and specific as possible about whatever policy gets developed.
And my only concern here is I'm not sure what a policy would have done in this situation. This would have been totally different if there was a 6-inch Christmas tree on a table, I presume. She just basically saw the absence and got offended. And so, yes, I think a policy might help, but if you and the staff could articulate that in a concise form, that would be helpful.
I think we can certainly, I think we can do that. I think the main thing that would help us with in having those conversations is I can always say, this is something we've talked with our library board about. Our library board or our community representatives who, help us understand the needs of our community. And the way that we have always approached it, again, like I put in my thing is we don't look at the displays in isolation. We try to look at everything that's in the library, right? And we have lots of resources of different kinds, and so our displays, are frequently things that are honestly, sort of underrepresented in our collection, right? And it's an effort to bring those to our community and to raise awareness of those. And the way I look at it is that a display is just one part of the library's overall collection and resources. And we try to be equitable and inclusive with everything in the library. So if we have a policy that I can say, that's what we're trying to do, and that's something that our library board as representing the community are comfortable with, that's a much easier conversation than, well, I'm the library director and, I just say so. So that's the value it gives us. And I think, Cynthia, you hit it on the head. It also helps staff. It just, it makes those conversations easier. I will say, whenever I do have conversations like that, I always invite people to come to a library board meeting and remind them there is a public comment period and you are more than welcome to come and talk to our library board, express your concerns. To date, no one has taken me up on the offer.
Do you do any kind of internal review of the it's going to be on display?
Our teams, like Barrett and her team, I think every month they will get together and say, hey, here's what's coming up. I know, for example, in adult services, that Jen and Blake, they're very keyed into what calendar, what cultural celebrations are going on, or what national or international observances are going on, and there are a lot that they focus on every year. They try to repeat those. I know the city, one of the things that's been suggested is that the city could develop a calendar of celebrations that we would say, hey, every city department is going to celebrate Diwali or do something at this time of the year. But I will say, at my Denise and I are typically not involved in working with our teams and vetting, you shall do this, and I trust my staff implicitly to make really good decisions and get materials and displays out there that are sensitive and meet the needs of the community.
Well, then I'd suggest that you come up with a draft policy that does exactly what you just mentioned, because I think that's exactly what we need, and that will support that.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other?
And were there any concerns about? And you don't have to answer now. If anybody ever has any concerns about how we're approaching trying to be equitable and trying to be please feel free to let us know. Our intent is never to exclude anyone, but again, looking at the whole library and all the collections, that's kind of the basis that we start on.
Heidi, did you have a comment?
Just, the school district is doing something we have an equity and belonging specialist, and one of their endeavors is to reach out to the stakeholders to get input on those different observances throughout the year, so that there would be that calendar, and it would, obviously be great to be in conjunction with the city on those things. And I'm thinking that, would work nicely with like that number 3 in the tactical plan too. That seems like that would be something as you think about how to diversify the things at the library overall, that could work out.
Yeah. I will get some more information from you offline. That would be great to get connected with that resource.
Okay, so there we go. Anything else related to that? Otherwise, I'll move to communications.
I've just got one comment. I rejoice that you had the Vestivus poll this year. But that opens up a can of worms, right? We can't use taxpayer funds to purchase things for displays, but it might be requested from the public that we allow public contributions of temporary display material. And that may need reviews and all that stuff. But I know that's what some cities do. Some citizens offer up a nativity scene, and then other interest groups offer up their own displays. And if you allow one, you need to allow all.
Right.
And at that point, then it's a can of worms, but it's very inclusive. Worm can. So who knows?
All different types of worms.
Well, and there are policies that have policies for patron initiated, patron submitted displays. That's certainly something we could work on. Is the board comfortable we focus on library staff displays first before we would try to tackle that?
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
But we don't have anything at the city level, correct? To address this?
No, not. I believe I'm not even sure what other departments might have a display that would be similar to what goes on in the library. Like Pioneer Center might have something, but I'm going to go out on the limb and say they probably don't have. But I'll check with Cicely and see if they do. Also, I think libraries being libraries, it's kind of a different. There's kind of a different expectation of and vision of what the library is as an institution, and the which may not be the same as the Pioneer Center. So somebody might not have the same concerns about walking to the Pioneer Center and seeing one type of display, whereas they would have a concern if they walked into a library and saw that same display.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, communications. Anything more on LDAC? Have they met?
We're as indicated in the email, that it doesn't. There's nothing scheduled. It's sort of waiting for this to happen. Which is that, in a sense, it's kind of unfortunate that it's going on, because we still haven't had any opportunity to look at the future in terms of LDAC or the library district, and what it really might mean for the not this topic, but in general, because we're out. We're now 15 years into the same rate that was developed or set in 2008.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. Great. Foundation, Cynthia?
Yes, we had our fundraising event in December, the silent auction and the author speaker, and that went very well. We learned some things about gathering people and setting up for a good traffic flow, and it was a really good event. It was, I think, with more than 100 people. Greg, was there 100 people?
Yeah, I think it was right around 100.
Yeah, that's a pretty good thing for the first part of February, and the first time we've done something like that. And food and wine were well accepted, and the silent auction, people really enjoyed participating in that. And both the Friends of the Library and the Library Foundation made a profit. And so that's a really good thing. And we're, going to be discussing whether we will do that event again, or we'll do a similar or different event. Just we had our elections for our new officers, and I will be the chairperson of the foundation, and Karen Martini will be the vice chair and fundraising captain. And we're talking about having a work session or retreat pretty soon, so that we can sort of refocus ourselves and take a look at our actions and our goals and our mission as relate to supporting the library, and hopefully take on a couple of new board members. So there'll be some additional activities and actions in the coming year.
Great, thank you. Oz, friends?
Well, Cynthia's already talked about the joint function. We didn't meet this month, but the last meeting we had was strictly a procedural one, so there are no actions to report. But I thought it was kind of interesting at the end of the meeting, someone made the comment that it was the first Friends meeting in memory where Greg didn't have a suggestion for how they could spend their money. But I'm sure he'll do better in the future.
Did Greg attend?
Yes.
Great, thank you. And the Teen Advisory Group Committee. Heidi?
Yeah, they're an active group. They are helping with the creative kits for February, the decorations and displays. They help with those as well. We have a number that have volunteered to support the Lunar New Year celebration, which is happening Saturday from 12 to 3 at the Pioneer Center. That's another celebration that features that cooperation of the library, the school district, park district, some other community groups. They've started helping plan May the 4th. That's coming up. And then a couple of their groups reported out. They have the newsletter going. They have the teen activities groups going. And then they are, so excited that they get to help with the teen room refresh. The furniture was what they talked about this time, and they did vote on the furniture that they were interested in moving forward with. So, great group of kids.
Great, fabulous. Well, anything else?
You'll enjoy them, Lisa.
Yeah.
Anything else for the good of the order?
I will say for the teens, as Heidi mentioned, it's not showing up. The brand new issue of the Stacks just came out. So next time you're in the library, pick up an issue of the Stacks. I can send this out to everybody as well. Yeah, they are a great group. They're awesome.
Great. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for your flexibility. And the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks.